One way to grow in marketing is to be so exceptional, people talk about you. And if you're an incredible restaurant, like people are going to tell friends, go to that restaurant. It's awesome.
You're about to hear a conversation between two agency owners who collectively have over 30 years of experience helping brands sell millions of dollars. Enjoy the episode.
Okay, so to start the show, might get the emotion. Okay, so to start the show, the content that I wanted to talk about was that I don't know if you saw, but Reebok hired Shaquille O'Neal as president of their basketball operations, and the VP is Allen Iverson.
Is who?
Allen
Iverson.
Yeah. So so and then I'm like, well, this is actually very interesting. And it also tags in with the episode that we had 2 weeks ago. How companies, they pretty much say, you know what, this is an influencer that has a lot of expertise in the subject matter. How about I bring him to on board and say, hey, you can be part, you can have a share of this company, be part owner of this company. So now you have skin in the game. We will leverage your we're gonna leverage your market, your team, your fans, your fund base, and everybody wins. So Reebok, this is Reebok's basketball operations. Look at it. Nike had that. Nike had like, okay, we're Nike. We have, we are a running shoe. We're gonna get somebody as the head of basketball operations. Fast forward, that's how we got, Michael Jordan, and we know where that brand is now. But Reebok, what they're doing right now is that they're going to say, okay, so now you're going to be the president of Reebok basketball, and so does Allen Iverson. And then what they explain is, well, you are going to be in charge of athlete acquisition, and you're going to be in charge of developing the brand and where we're going to take the brand. Iverson is more into like the whole community and all that stuff. But these are really big basketball people that are very involved in the community that are recognized. Y Shaq en sí es un brand en sí solo. Y es como que it's genius. It's like, mira, you know what? I trust that whatever you do here at your kids, of course, I am Reebok, so I'm going to give you a operational person. But you know what? We are trying to launch Reebok again. We have a good shoe. The best Reeboks that sold were the Iversons and the Shaqs. Of course, the Shaqs had a lot of. I used to have there was a time that they had like nitros, and you would put it on your shoe. Like you remember when the pumps came out. Afterwards, I had a Shaq one that those were the ones that I had back in the day, when I played basketball. So what's great about this is that, of course, they're giving him like full reign. He's like, you know what? There's nobody else that is going to know what basketball people want and you can just take the brand and take it all the way. He, unlike Michael Jordan, Shaq is extremely I don't want to say personable. It's not like the word. He's extremely he likes the spotlight. I think that Reebok was very, very smart in picking Iverson and Shaq as their president and vice president of a brand within Reebok, which is the other thing that we need to explain because, they probably have interests and stuff like that. But with them, that's a very marketing positioning when they're browsing this individual brand.
Yeah. I think, there's Hagen. Remember we talked about this? Hagen is the platform where you speak a language and then you can turn it into another language.
Oh, yeah.
Remember I showed you the video?
Yeah, I seen your Instagram. Yeah, you can have you can have it in Portuguese.
Yeah. That's another way to go about it. We just record it in English and then have it translated into Spanish and Portuguese. It's going to cost some money. It's not exactly super cheap.
Look, we were kind of talking about it.
Yeah.
This is a bigger brand.
Yeah. And it's not a brand ambassador. It's somebody who's going to run part of the operation. But like in the end, it's sort of like more of a brand ambassador role, I'm assuming.
I imagine they are going to try to legitimize his role, like saying, well, you know what? The first 3 shoes that are going to come out, they're going to come out of him and Iverson knowing people that can come out with badass shoes that the basketball market really likes, and they're going to launch it and put it there with, fuel it with the name of Shaq and all stuff. And they're really hoping that the investment of everything that goes on is going to do. I believe it is going to be I believe it's not going to be like, oh my God, what are we going to work on? I think it's going to be very easy. I think the market really accepted it. It's just too easy not to say. The other thing too is that say, you're the Reebok president of basketball operations. So there's always going to be somebody who's going to push them. What's my bottom line? How many do we have to sell? And yeah, I'm sorry, we're not going to use, rhino leather, just to throw something there, to make these shoes because it's extremely costly. We need to do it this way, this way, this way.
Yeah.
So that would happen.
Yeah. It's an interesting move.
What do you have? Because you already told you I have two things. One was the Shaq thing. I thought was really great. The other one that was very interesting was a few weeks back. I think in the end of September, Honda came out with their new marketing strategy and the new company, vision, and they put everything together. And I thought it was really, really, really cool and really well thought out. Because it takes back from all their great ideas that have come out. So Honda's new positioning, and I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to tell you what it is. Honda launched a new brand campaign, Keep Dreaming, that introduces its first all-electric SUV, the 2024 Prolo, and showcases the company's history of innovation and commitment to global carbon neutrality by 2050. And this is per the press release. So they just launched this new their ad is really cool. You watch it, I can put it on the link. We sure it talks about, it pretty much goes from how they wear a motorcycle to all of the things that they have done to pretty much create new low carbon emission vehicles, from their hybrids to everything that they're doing to now first on battery and all that. And then their goal is to just be, they have made it a goal for the 2050 to have zero emission. So what I really like about it is that there's a lot of things that I love about it. One is that they're a brand. They have already made sure to establish where they're heading with their direction. So if you're a person who are like, well, you know what, I like my cars to also have gasoline because that's the whatever I like in with gas and electricity. Maybe a Honda might not be your brand. Maybe you are looking into somebody who's really looking into this goal. I also like in the fact that they're pretty much establishing their flag. They're putting a flag down and saying, look, this is where we're heading. This is where we're heading for the next 50 years. We've been very successful in the past. We're really successful now. We're getting planes out of the ground with only electricity. Like, all this potential can happen, and this is where our brand is going. Kind of join us if you want to. The commercial is really good because it's very it's very dynamic, and then you kind of see what they're trying to do with the progression and where they're taking the stuff. And it's not just, it becomes a little sci-fi, but at the same time, like right now, the things that are happening right now, you can actually see that they're being developed. But one of the other reasons that I really liked it was because, as you get familiar with Tesla, they, Elon Musk's goal was like, well, when we're going to try to do it, we're going to try to foment, battery, battery powered, vehicles and electric powered vehicles. That's our goal, and that's what we're trying to bring, to the point that he pretty much let everybody, use kind of gave them the blueprints of how to make the battery that he has or something. It's one of those things. But the cool thing about, when Musk did this was pretty much saying, hey, like, my goal is for everybody to start using, let's not use electric, let's start using more electric cars rather than that. So it's a good vision and a good statement, because then everybody who's in the company can actually follow that flag. And it's a very easy way for them to culturally adapt their brand, not just internally, but also to the public and also anybody who works with them. So yeah, I thought that was, I wanted to bring it up because I thought that whole thing with Honda was pretty, really good.
Yeah, I just, and it's funny because I think what you mentioned earlier was, if I want a gas car, then maybe Honda is not the right one. I think it sort of works. It doesn't really work in reverse. Like, I don't see anybody thinking like, I want a gas powered car. I think it works the other way around. I think it's like, I want a battery powered car, an electric car. And it's just clearly where it's going. Like, the whole market is shifting that way. So I think it could help them maybe in the short run, but I think eventually everyone just produces electric vehicles, and that's the new standard, and we just phase out the old one. Sort of like when DVDs killed VHS. Remember those tapes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my laser disc collection. And it's like,
Right.
like
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
no,
It's-
the
feels
thing is there are right now there's this growing thing happening, and it's there's like some articles about it. Is that this is the seventh year that Tesla had their product. So right now, this is the time where people who have had Teslas for a long period of time, they start getting those like things that cars, you start going through, like, rotation, tires, blah, blah, the battery, and all these things. So this is where they're saying that this is where they're really putting, Tesla to the test right now. So apparently some cars are exploding, some cars this and some cars that. Hey, it's sad because you're putting right now Tesla in a microscope. There's also Ford Explorers that have been blown up about 4 years ago. So it's not like, and Ford's been doing this for way longer. So you have to take that as is. There's always people who say, well, you know what? I love the hybrid concept because I can also have the gasoline, but I can also do this. I think in this time maybe I feel more comfortable with a hybrid just because if I have to take a long road trip, I know that in the back of my mind, I can always go and put gasoline, which I know I can.
Right.
Rather than, so maybe that works right now in 2023. As you say, maybe in 2032. I mean,
It's not an
maybe,
issue. Yeah.
you just carry a little battery, 9 volt, and then that's it. But yeah, I just think that it's just very interesting because there is a lot of people who are like, well, I still like, the gas, I still like the sound of it, the smell, that motor head feeling to it, and I'm like, well, great. I don't think that our kids are gonna enjoy that as much as you guys did because technology just, before a motor was this huge thing. Now they're just shrinking them and they're making them more electric. And so this is going to be that phase of. But what I did like is that they don't say, "Hey, we are going to make all our cars, electric by 2050." It's like, no, we are making our company, everything that we develop, low carbon, like zero carbon emission to 2050. This is our goal. This is our goal as a company. And yes, we do cars, and cars do spend a lot of carbon emission. So we're going to start from taking out phasing out our gas cars eventually, gas, and then all that, and then they just eventually gonna have a pretty much electric line. So rather than trying to satisfy everybody, they were like, look, this is the best for the company. This is where we need to go. This is the best for the environment. This is where I see the future is going. Let's just focus in this rather than being wishy-washy with.
Yeah, which is most companies, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're doing this, but we're also doing what's profitable today, etc. Yeah, I think it's a bold move, but I think it's super obvious. Like, that's where it's going. That's the right move. Like, it makes total sense. That sort of ties into something I want to talk about, which is there's this concept in startups called product market fit.
Oh, yeah.
And product market fit basically means that whatever you've built, the market really, really wants. Not just sort of wants, not just like, we have some sales. It's like the market really wants it, right? And part of what they describe sometimes, and this comes from Y Combinator, they say building a startup is like rolling a big boulder up a hill. So you're pushing this boulder, you're pushing this boulder, you're pushing this boulder, and then you hit product market fit, and then that's like the top of the hill, and then the boulder starts running down, and then you're running after the boulder, and it's sort of pulling you down, and you're running after it. And I think, and so one of the things they describe is the founders are like, this is really hard when they're trying to get it to push the boulder up, but then it's even harder sometimes when the boulder is on its way down, because then you're like, okay, I found something, like I have something of value now. But now my servers are down, my customer service lines are full.
I take control. I have too much demand, and I can't serve it. So
Yeah,
I'm not sacrificing customer service and things like
right. Maybe you can serve it eventually, but it's really difficult at the beginning because you're struggling. The thing keeps breaking. You're up at 2 a.m. trying to fix it so that you don't lose momentum, and it can be a lot more stressful than sort of contemplating, thinking, "Oh, let's do this today, let's do that tomorrow. We'll figure out a way to grow, etc." But I think so. That's just sort of the explanation of product market fit. But apart from that, what I wanted to sort of bring to the table, because this is a marketing show and we're talking about marketing, all these things, and I think part of our audience is like medium, large companies, some small business, but not like the micro, there's the startup that's at phase 0. But I think that concept of product market fit sort of gets lost along the way, and I think companies figure out, okay, this is working, we're selling, blah blah blah. Like, okay, we're done. We're sort of done. Like from that point on, it's really mostly about execution and being able to serve the market and do your thing. When these sort of things come along, which is, we're moving to renewables or electric vehicles or whatever it is, and then the company struggles that you haven't innovated in years, or if you had an innovation department, it's like something you sort of fund on the side, but it's not really your focus. And I think, and there I'm talking about like these big car companies, but even if you go down the line and it's not these huge corporations, but we're talking about the medium, small, large corporation, not like extra large, not huge. I also think they stop sort of innovating and tweaking. And I think more than just saying it's research and development and innovation, and they should still be doing that. That's obvious. It's more like there is maybe product market fit left to do. So maybe you have a company that's doing XYZ, but if it did, D, E, and F plus XYZ, it would be a much bigger company. But you never sort of explore that side because you say,
You're saying you achieved X, Y, and Z,
yeah,
and that's it. I know that I could do the E and F, however, I'm just gonna stick with my X, Y, and Z.
well, I think they don't even know that. That's what I'm saying. Like they might not have explored enough to say D, E, and F really work. So for example, let's say, I don't know,
I think, and we're talking here about there's no exit strategy. We're talking here about you want your company to last the next 30, 40 years, kind of thing, right?
yeah, and I think there's just a concept where like we stop tweaking the product, for example, or the service, and we say, well, I'm selling. This is, it's going well. I have clients, like, and the focus is how do I get more clients and how do I, maybe add a few services on, but like how do I really grow, expand into new markets, etc. And I think that for the most part that makes sense. But I think what gets left behind is that quest for product market fit, because product market fit, I was talking about this earlier on the phone call, is on a scale, right? Like you can have extreme product market fit, which is, you're up at 2 a.m., your servers don't work, everything's falling apart, you're in the news. Sort of, there's a famous essay by Mark Andreessen that describes this. VCs are stalking you. I mean, more for the startup world, but extreme market fit, right? Like you have thousands and thousands of orders, and then there's like less extreme market fit where it's like, oh, it's working. Like I'm growing every year, 50%, etc. And then there's less. It's like, oh, I mean, it works. When I grow 10%, like that's fine too. But I think on that spectrum, a lot of people would benefit. Maybe the guy that's on the extreme and everything's falling apart, they don't have to do anything more because they need to figure out how to monetize and extract the most value from what they've already been able to find, which is sort of like catching lightning in a bottle, right? They found it, so they should stick to sort of optimizing that and then growing that. But eventually, that whole thing starts to slow down, right? Like, okay, so now there's more competition, the market's more saturated, and they really need to find product market fit again and keep finding those hits. And I think that's something that a lot of people that are running businesses don't think about because they're stuck in the day-to-day process of like, how do I get more clients? How do I do this? And maybe you need to step back and say, maybe the problem isn't how do I get more clients for my current thing? Maybe the problem is how do I fix my current thing so that it's more appealing to more people, or so it's a better service. And so, or maybe it fits the market in a way where people have a line out the door to try and buy from me. And get that done,
There is I said it in a previous show, but it's the whole concept of like, fall in love with the problem, not the solution that you create. Because if you fall in love with the problem, you did create a solution, which is great. But if the problem is still there or the problem is still working, then that gives you the room for how do I innovate?
Yeah.
Then it comes down to this thing where kind of bringing itself back, but the whole thing about like, this is a copper one, you don't need a copper one, you need a plastic one. Yeah, but we've been doing copper. Imagine if you're a factory, you say, well, but we solved a solution, there was huge demand, people still buying these copper thing. Yeah, but the future now involves you invest in plastic and letting this go that has been great for you, but this is not gonna take you there. And you say, well, but all this money that I have invested and all this stuff. So it's like, well, I think that the whole point there is that you have to understand where, there's when you are already in the black from the red, and that everything that you did, kind of fits and all that stuff. As you're saying, that this already happened, that you're right now making money, and it's like rather than you going and searching innovation, you're pretty much trying to hold on tight to your boulder, to like maintain it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the innovator's dilemma, you know? I don't know if you're familiar with the book, but it's basically that's what it is, right? Like it's how do I, I'm stuck doing what I'm doing. It's working well. It's working now. And a lot of these companies are measured in like, an annual basis or a quarterly basis. They need to show results. And it's a very difficult to say, I'm just going to shut this down and move all my resources into this. I think, for example, Zuckerberg did something that's, well, maybe, Facebook keeps running, the machine keeps working, and they're still producing billions.
But he also has the right, like, we're talking about, we suffer of that too. We suffer of the fact that, Facebook today decides, oh yeah, we're going to change this button from here to here. For them, it's just like, but for us that we deal with clients, we have to be on the phone and be like, no, look, the button, it's the third button under the settings section, which is the little cog in the left side. There's no cog on the left side.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no cog on the left side. That is true. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to call you tomorrow because I have to figure out what Zuckerberg did today. It happens quite often, though.
Yeah. Well, that's the main product, but they invested, for example, in the metaverse. They poured billions of dollars into that, and sort of, unashamed about it. Like, yeah, maybe the metaverse isn't here yet, and we were early, and we invested a bunch of money, and maybe it, went down the drain, or maybe not, or maybe this works in 5 years and 10 years, but not now.
This is a seed of an investment,
right?
That we eventually going to get there, kind of thing.
Yeah. I also think Facebook makes so much money that it's sort of easy to do all these things, right? Like if you're running an airline or you're running a company that makes very little profit, then it's very difficult because then it's like, okay, I have a 5% margin or a 10% margin to do, all these other things, reinvest, buy back shares. I need to do all these different things. But I think it just feels like that whole concept of let's invest and see what happens is something few companies are okay with and are fine doing, like investing and saying, if we lose the money, we lose the money. But there's a concept that Jeff Bezos says that says in baseball, if you hit a home run, you can only score 4 runs total, right? 3 people on the base plus the guy who hit the ball. But in business, that's not really the case. If you hit a home run, you can score infinite runs, right? So if we strike out a bunch of times trying to get that big home run, when we get the big home run, it pays for all the strikeouts we had. And obviously, again, Amazon is a behemoth. It's got a bunch of it's doing like the scale.
The whole, I think we talked about this, but when Windows decided to come out with like the soon again, like or the Windows Phone, and they put like $1 billion at that time. It's just like $1 billion, billion, because right now it's billion because but that was like $1 billion of marketing, and we don't know about any Windows Phone as of now.
Yeah.
They had to try it. They had to.
And sure, they lost $1 billion, but maybe had they hit the home run, had the phone been successful, they would have made hundreds of billions.
Or you get I lost today, but I gained knowledge. That's the thing. Like I think, especially for entrepreneurs, the whole thing about losing, you can't take it as you lost. You take it as like, well, you learn. You either win or you learn. The whole, just win and lose. Now, I think you win or you learn, because if you start getting caught up into your, your investment and all that stuff, then of course, not to say you have to be responsible with money, of course, but I feel that. I think where your pain is coming. I think where your point is coming from, and I think that it is a pain. Yes, a lot of people are so risk adverse sometimes that they don't even see the possibilities of trying to. Let's try to hit a home run. Let's try to get involved with it.
Yeah, and even if it's just tweaking your product, because one way to grow in marketing is to be so exceptional, people talk about you, and if you're an incredible restaurant, like people are going to tell friends. Go to that restaurant. It's awesome. If you're a really good movie, people are going to say, or Netflix show.
If you're excellent at it, word of mouth is always going to be your.
Word of mouth is going to help you. And so I think the whole point sort of comes down to like innovation, experimentation with your existing product or with new avenues. But maybe just your existing product is probably something you should pay more attention to, because if you're able to tweak that product and continue to tweak it, imagine it just compounds, right? So you start offering service A, then 3 years down the line, you're offering service A squared, and then as you move along every year, if you improve and improve on the service and the product, there will come a time where you find a more extreme version of product market fit, and then the business starts growing a lot more because, well, now you're offering. And I'm not talking about just add-on services. It's not like, oh, I'm doing this, so I'm growing because of that.
Well,
Saying like, this is now exceptional, and I'm getting word of mouth. I'm getting clients all the time, and even then, we continue to tweak it to see if you can find that extreme version of product market fit. Not to give up on, say, okay, well, we're a bank, we've got it. It's it's the same service as the bank next door. We're just better at marketing. Well, it's like, okay, well, what can I offer? What can I do? I think those conversations sometimes are lost in the day-to-day operations. And that reminds me of something I was reading too, that, there's a concept called vertical SaaS. Basically, SaaS meaning software as a service, right? And what they're saying is now the markets are bigger, digital, like the whole digital's the idea of using digital is sort of pervasive and everywhere, and it's
life.
It's like, yeah. And so now now and a few years back, a lot of companies are just vertically like they want to do one vertical and that's it. So for example, there's software for running gyms. That's it. It's not software that's like Google Docs, right? Google Docs.
To get to your story, like right now, my thing is, what do you do? Well, then be more specific.
Yeah.
I have issues with this, but yeah, but yeah, it is that trend, like you do a SaaS, you know what? You do it from home. Well, I started doing the SaaS, and then we figured out that the people who get the best return is gyms. Therefore, now this is just pretty much doing with gyms, and they add the bells and whistles. This is for gyms who just have circuits. This is just gyms who have weights, but we're still a SaaS for gyms. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's for yoga, there's for gyms, there's a bunch of stuff, right? Salons, everything. And so of course, when somebody says, I have this software that does everything, and accountants use it, lawyers use it, gyms use it, barbershops use it, you're like, okay, cool. But then if somebody else comes along and says, we only work with gyms, we understand your pain points, this happens with this, it's a much more specific product. And so it's a lot easier to get the product market fit because people feel like, oh, this is built for me. It's designed for people that operate gyms.
They understand me. They speak the same language.
My language, my pain points, and it's built for me. So it literally addresses the issues I have versus a generic version of a software that just works for everyone. And so it's counterintuitive, right? Because you would think, well, the general software that works for everyone is a bigger market, so I should go there. But in reality, well, there's a lot of gyms in the U.S., for example, so it's still a big market, and you can have a much bigger penetration if you're just for gyms. So that's been happening. But on top of that trend, what's also been happening is these companies have figured out that sometimes the product itself, the software, isn't necessarily the main driver of revenue and value. And what they end up noticing is, on top of all of this, I can become a fintech, or I can become an insurtech. So I can offer insurance and I can offer financial products on top of this. And maybe that's a more lucrative market. And that's a way to grow my top line, my revenue, because now I'm offering these companies not just the software to run their business, but then I say, I can process your payment transactions. I can serve as a bank. You can leave your money with me. I can loan you money. I can give you credit cards. I can give you,
and those services, they're probably not even doing them in-house. They're probably just partnering with somebody.
Maybe, yeah. So there's a couple of APIs, and there's other companies that do all of the work in the back end so that you can provide that. But it's just an interesting trend that's happening where software is the entry point, but then on top of that, you're able to offer more things.
We talked about it, the concept of being more sticky, and yeah, I have since we do one of the products is website development, we have have that concept of like, oh yeah, well, Could you do logos? Yeah, we do logos. Do you do websites? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, excellent. Let's do a logo and a website. Oh, great. Well, how about we just stick to the logo? I'm like, okay, sure. What happened with the website? Oh no, because we found out, like you say, well, pretty much those days, not only do they give you the website, because I was just the one who gave you the website, is a template, but they have the tracking of that. It is for a laundry, like a laundry service. So they give you the tracking, they give you the whole thing that comes with the suite, which is like making sure that the tracking numbers for the tickets that we have, we can actually find them easier. What are the products that we're selling? Where can the client pick it up? We have a text message that says, hey, your laundry is pretty much done. So they have the full suite. But then, as you said before, it's also like, oh, and they also, through them, you can actually do payments like Apple Pay, Cash Pay, PayPal, and all that stuff. Um, Similar to Square. Square, a lot of people here, they need a point of sale. They buy the Square point of sale. It's great. They sell you the software. It's easy for you to go to the restaurant and have, your chicken wings or whatever and all set up. But then, when you pay, they take your credit card and all that stuff. The thing is, as I told you before, it's like, well, so now who is the person who manages this data? Is this data yours? Or is this data the company? And then they actually put a fee on top of it to say, oh, if you want us to give you this data, you have to pay this much money on top of it because you are now in the zone of preferred vendor kind of thing.
Good.
Yeah, I think to what you're saying, I believe that they are just that way of getting more. Yeah, like the SaaS products is now getting into other ways of making more and more and more money with tweaking the same product.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I think that they figured out oh, okay. So these people also need financial services. Like I could offer insurance for the people that go to the gym. Like all these sort of intangibles that I can add on that might actually be more lucrative than the actual service. It's sort of similar to the story of McDonald's where I don't know if you've seen the movie or read about it, but they sort of figured out, oh, okay, well, the land and the rent is actually
the real estate is more valuable than
as a big business compared it's the other part's also big, right? Like it's the restaurant also does a lot of money, et cetera. But they noticed oh, the business is more, this is the real business behind the whole thing. And I think what we're seeing is these SaaS companies okay, I built the software and I charge $10 a month or whatever it is, or $50 or $100. And that's cool and that's great. But there's another whole universe here that I haven't explored, which is how do I offer complementary services that they also need where I can capture more of the value with my software, right? So once you have the software, then it's easier to sell them.
I mean, I think, so then let's talk about the edible side of it. I remember when Citibank in the 90s, they became such an umbrella that was just like, what does Citi do? Citibank, Citi brokerage, Citi insurance, Citi this, Citi that, Citi that, and then look, 5 years later, they realized that out of all these Citi stuff that they were doing, they were in Citi crap, and then they had to pretty much start cutting down business because they couldn't hold them, or they were not good enough, or they really were not built for the core of it. Mm-hmm. So that's why
You're skeptical.
You have to be a little bit skeptical about, well, you know what? I hired you to make my business, my gym business more profitable with, the memberships and all sorts of stuff, that email and all that stuff, that part of the software I love. But I don't know if I want to do my QuickBooks through you.
Yeah.
Well, you have a similar thing that is QuickBooks, and maybe your thing is powered by QuickBooks. At the same time, if I have a particular problem with respect to why didn't this credit card pass through, I don't know if I want to go call you that you have no idea, call this person that has no idea, that this person is already serving that.
Yeah, really.
Story around those lines happened when I was in wireless. There was a lot of treaties that the states make or the cities make with developers, which is okay, so we're going to only run one type of fiber optic, and this fiber optic was paid for by X, but we're not going to open another hole. So you're going to have to, because this is going to be, can't monopolize it. Sprint is going to also jump in on your same fiber optic, or same thing with satellites, with T-Mobile and AT&T, which used to work with the GPS and all that stuff. I don't know what the current system is right now, but what would happen a lot would be that there were places that you had to rent the space from that fiber optic from a competitor. So you are pretty much asking a competitor not to give you a poison apple kind of thing, and it just always just didn't work well.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's one thing is to say like, oh, we're now offering, I don't know, insurance for the people at your gym or something, or we're now offering credit cards. I think what ends up being special is when you're able to add on the new products by extracting value from the product you already have. So if I already know who's coming into the gym, their demographics, I have all this data that you've given me because you're using my software. Now, now I can say, according to all this, I can tell you who you should, who should have a larger coverage in your insurance for the gym, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't work that way specifically. It's just an example. But if you're able to like extract the value from what you have now and say, because of what we have now, we can offer you a much better service over here, then it makes sense. So for example, you said QuickBooks. So sure, you can integrate with QuickBooks, you'll have it separately, and that's built for that. But because we know sort of what other gyms are doing, we can actually offer you a QuickBooks where you can see your financial statement, and then you can see, gyms like yours, what do their financial statements look like, without name running anything. Then it's a value added service, but only you can offer it, and only you are able to. This is.
I think you're going to the whole consulting part of it. So to give it to you, like, well, there are two things concepts here. The first one is, if you're Pop-Tarts, and which I'm probably going to go away in the near future, but if you're Pop-Tarts, and people see you as America's favorite breakfast, then it's easy for you to create Pop-Tart cereal because Pop-Tart cereal, breakfast, fun, sugar, whatever works there. Boom. We can see that product. You don't go ahead and say, Pop-Tart salad. It just wouldn't work. So we have to pretty much stay within the line of what your brand can do. But when it comes down to consulting, especially with SaaS or just in general, like my brother-in-law has a company that does work with a lot of foundries to do specific parts for their business. So what they have found out is that let's actually go back to the concept that we're talking about, the gym. So maybe that one is an easier one to follow. But if you actually go and say, okay, so, congratulations, you bought the SaaS program and this is what you get, and your memberships and all the stuff, and you can pay by PayPal, whatever, you can have all of these things done. Also, if you want to be we also offer, the Super Boost program. What's the Super Boost program? Well, we're going to have one of our consultants that have worked with many other gyms, just like yours, that have the same SaaS system and the same SaaS, and we can actually increase your sales by this much just by you working with us, and we're going to consult you in making your gym. That one probably works a lot. I mean, that one I like better than insurance because that one has a lot. That one has a personal physically telling you, well, this has worked before. This works in that. I like the insurance commercial too because they probably also run the numbers about how many people got injured during the gym. Let's say that they also have that data, and they could probably sell that. But I just think that it could be probably out of the wheelhouse to actually really manage insurance. Unless, as I said before, you find a right partner that does like, hey, you know what, we do white label insurance, like just plug it in and do it.
Yeah, but I think you can. I mean, I just think like the fact that you're already providing value and they're already your customers give you a distribution channel, right? To sell.
It's easier to sell.
Right, but then on top of that, because it's sort of data driven, you can also do things others can't. So let's say I have 1,000 gyms using my software. They're all in South Florida. And if I want to start offering insurance, I can tell by the type of gym you have, whether it's, a Pilates or whatever, spinning or whatever it is, I can tell based statistically, I know how many people get injured, what's going on there in terms of data. So then maybe I can provide a cheaper insurance service to you because I have better numbers. I know exactly what's going on because I have all the data from the thousands of locations I have, right? that are working with me. And I think that's where the magic is. I think if
Like you say, when you say data, yeah, it has to be.
yeah,
This option was done data driven with a clear purpose. Like, okay, so what does that data show year after year? We have there, yeah, you're right.
yeah. So, or you could say like, look, you can use QuickBooks, but if you use our version, you don't have to connect QuickBooks. It's already connected. You'll have all your financial statements. Plus, you get to see where you stand compared to gyms like yours. We're not going to tell you, gym ABC here has this amount of profit because that would be confidential information, but we can tell you in aggregate what your financial statement looks like versus the gyms. And that's the kind of information that you might think, well, I mean, sure, I can QuickBooks, but I wouldn't have that. QuickBooks isn't going to give me that. But this is actually interesting. I can actually measure myself and know where I'm screwing up, because if there's somebody else who's more profitable, I can be like, oh, well, they're paying their employees less, or maybe their marketing expenses lower, whatever it is, right? Like you can you'll have an idea what they're, and then this is just an example, right? Like I'm just assuming there's a lot of stuff that can happen between I had the software and now I'm a fintech and now I'm offering you credit cards and payments and I'm able to give you the option to give the people from your gym a special credit card, and this is how you play it. I don't know. It's just it's a trend where like if you're innovating within the existing ecosystem, but you're using your strength to offer those products that nobody else can offer. And I think that's what house really search.
I think that the biggest key here, and I think that if we have to close the show and we have takeaways, you do it driven in data, or like again, data is king. Because if you have this data, then you have the possibilities of pretty much branch your product however you see it fit. That does the added value. So it would be tweaking that product XYZ. This would definitely be the DEF portion that we talked about before.
Yeah. So maybe like the final conclusion would be like, okay, if you run a business, you're part of a small or medium or large business, what are the things that what's the data you're gathering from whatever exercise you're doing, whether it's software or maybe just a service business, consulting, etc. What are the inputs that you're gathering to use for your normal product, and how does that help you offer or add on a different service that's still within your ballpark, but it's also like 10 times better than the competition because you have proprietary data from either the client or whoever it is, but you have a way of offering something that others would struggle to offer without first being, an agency, a software, whatever it is, right? And how do you? So that's one thing, and then the other is, okay, what is it that my market wants and my customers are asking for? What is it that I'm offering, and how do I tweak what I'm offering so that it continually matches more and more what they want and expect, so that it becomes exceptional, so that word of mouth kicks in, and then I can grow even faster. So there's those two sides to it where like they can be the same thing, but I think the message is like, okay, how do you become a company that's thinking about these things and how to grow without necessarily saying I'm just going to spend more on marketing. And I think as marketers, we need to think about those leverage points where we can really tweak things and have them go in one direction or the other.